So for activity 2, we're going to look at chromosome morphology and nomenclature. And fundamentally, what we're looking at here is how locations are named um, based on a system that was developed in 1971. So I'm just going to read very quickly the intro information here. It says human chromosomes are numbered from 1 to 22 according to centromere placement and decreasing size, roughly speaking. The 23rd pair of chromosomes includes the so-called sex chromosomes X and Y. And you may recall, really the X chromosome isn't particularly a sex chromosome. It's the Y chromosome that has those key genes for making a male. The default sex, which relies on genes from all the other chromosomes, is female. But we can talk more about that later. The chromosomes are typically stained when they are prepared on slides to show a striped pattern, and you'll see that in the figure in a minute. The dark and light stripes are called bands. Bands are grouped into larger groupings called regions. The numbering system for the chromosomal bands and regions, as shown in the image, came from a meeting in 1971, and I have the actual the original paper from 1971. It's a little discolored, but this is called the Paris Conference, and I've scanned some of this in, although it can be found online. So what we're going to be looking at is the numbering system that was agreed upon in that meeting, because before this meeting, there was no standard way to refer to human chromosomes particularly. So if I had a gene on a certain chromosome that I was interested in and I needed to call somebody and tell them about it, there was no way I could say it's chromosome 8 because that hadn't been decided on. So I would say it's a medium-sized chromosome with the centromere sort of in the middle. It was just no standardized way to communicate things about particular chromosomes. So the meeting in 1971, they agreed on this system. It's not something you figure out. It's just the system that we use. So once I show you the image, I'll show you how to use the system. So it turns out that the image I'm going to show you from 1971, it was generated at the resolution level that they had at that time. Since then, we now have better resolution of the chromosomes, and so they have added another layer of locations called subbands. We're not going to use the subbands, but you'll see them sometimes in the literature. So I'm going to show you the image here, and then we're going to find and locate some particular locations. And this will help you to understand how you're supposed to use this. So the image is provided, and the first one that I ask you to locate is 2q12. The number 2 is the chromosome number. These chromosomes are shown in the dyad form because when the chromosomes are photographed in real life, they are always photographed after S phase. It's just logistically a better time to do that process. So to mimic that, these are shown as dyads. However, you're not seeing homologous pairs because there's no need to show 2 copies of chromosome 1. So just 1 copy of chromosome 1 in the dyad form, 1 copy of chromosome 2 in the dyad form, and so on. So 2 is the chromosome number. Q refers to what we call the long arm. So the centromere divides the chromosome into 2 arms. P is the short arm, P for petite, because the meeting was in Paris. And Q is just the opposite of P. It's like the flip, the inverse, the opposite. Q doesn't stand for anything, but in this case, it refers to the long arm. Now, you'll recall some chromosomes are metacentric, some are submetacentric. They can be acrocentric, and in species other than human, they can be telocentric. For a metacentric chromosome, P and Q are the same length fundamentally, but they decided which one would be officially called P and which one would be officially called Q, and so that is set up already for you. And in this diagram, P is always going to face up, Q is always going to face down because the chromosomes have been arranged intentionally in that way. So if we need to find 2q12, you'll notice how I pronounce that, 2q12. It's chromosome 2, the Q arm, region 1, band 2. So it goes from broadest to most specific location in order. So 2q12. So on the map here, on the chromosomal map, you would go to 2. This is 2 right here. Then you will find Q, which is the arm that's facing down. It doesn't matter which chromatid you pick. And then 1, 2 would be region 1, which is a really small number here in this sort of broader section, region 1, and then band 2. So it would be the first black band as you're moving away from the centromere. And let me see if I can get a pen. I don't see a pen off the top of my head. All right. So 2q12. All right, so it would be right about there. Let me see. Well, that's not a very specific, maybe that first black band as you move away from the centromere. So the next one is 11, chromosome 11, P12. So this is chromosome 11. The P arm would be the one sticking up, 1 for the region, and 2 for the band. So again, the first black band moving away from the centromere. And the last example I gave you is XQ21. So X here, and the same would be for Y if it was Y. X, we don't say 23, we say XQ, which would be the longer chromosome, 2, 1. So region 2, band 1 would be right here. So you'd be about right here, if you can see. Okay, so I put some pop-ups, some quiz poppers, so you can practice that. And then the other thing that I will typically do that's a little easier on a online type quiz would be I would mark a spot, and trust me, I'll have a better pen than this. I would mark a particular spot, maybe right there, and ask you to name that. So for example, 12 P, because it's the shorter arm and it's the arm facing up in the diagram, and then region 1, and then band 2. So that would be 12P12. So you go from broadest location, which is chromosome number, to the arm, to the region, to the band. And that's how these locations are named. And it gets you into the vicinity of where the gene actually is. It's not the most precise location identifier, but it's used quite a bit to give you a general sense of where genes are. So that is what you need to know about this.